Welcome. It's lovely to see you.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask you a few questions about how you became a Christian. Introduce yourself to us. Married, kids, hobbies, what do you do for a living?
Yeah, so I'm Tom. I'm married to Fee. We've got 4 boys. Hobbies, good question. Don't have much time for them now. I've got 4 boys.
You've just been in
4
America,
boys.
haven't you?
Yes.
You've just been in America.
Yes, so my brother lives in Portland, Oregon, and they just had a baby, so I went out to see him. First time I've seen him in 3 years, so we went out to see them. Got to see some NBA basketball and look around the city of Portland.
Right.
So that was fun.
Good.
Yes.
What do you do for a living?
I've got 2 different part-time jobs at the moment. One is operations manager for a small international development charity. We work in Africa and India. And then the other one is I train sailing instructors, work with water sports centres and around the region and the Midlands.
So teaching sailing.
Yes.
Now, you must have some stories connected with that. Falling in the water, disasters. It must be a bit hairier on occasions. Tell us some of the things that have happened while you're teaching sailing.
Plenty.
By the way, did you get that question right about windsurfing not being in the clip?
Our team got it wrong.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
But our
I wouldn't want to tell you.
Winning.
Our team is winning.
Our team is winning at the
we're
moment.
actually going to stop the quiz now and take our prizes with us.
I could interview you for a long time, couldn't I? And then we could see out the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
We'll do that.
Any stories from your sailing days?
There was one where I was on my course to become a trainer, which is where you train other instructors, and we were in the Solent in the English Channel, and we were doing a man overboard drill where you have to pick up a dummy out of the water, and we just set off to pick up this dummy, and I fell in the water, so I ended up being the dummy. So I looked like the dummy, but then it was worse for the person who was trying to pick me up because it took him about 5 attempts, so I was freezing in the English Channel. Another one which I'll never forget is when you teach kids to sail, we at the end of their course we teach them to capsize. So you tip the boats over, they fall in the water. I remember this one time with these boats called Optimus, which are basically a bathtub with a sail. And we tipped these 2 boys who must have been 9 or 10, and one of them panicked, and his response was to grab his friend and to try and climb out of the water up his friend. And so you can imagine what happened. He stayed where he was, and his friend just went further and further down. And so we had to grab them both by their buoyancy age and just lift them out of the water. Yeah.
It must be quite fun teaching sailing. I mean, that's quite a cool job, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And you're part of you work with an international development charity. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the charity is called Aruka Network. Aruka means wholeness in Hebrew, apparently. And so we work with local leaders in their communities in Africa and India. The aim that we're trying to be an NGO that isn't one that sends money from the West to Africa and India to try and fix the problems, but actually encourages local leaders to fix the problems themselves. So we gather them together in small groups and just work with them to support them. Right. So I kind of oversee the network and run events and manage a small staff team.
Great.
Doing that.
Great.
Yeah.
Now, you're a Christian. Jesus, you follow Jesus. He's transformed your life. Talk to us about where it all started. Have you always been a Christian? What was your upbringing like?
No. So I grew up here, actually. So it all started here.
So you're a Worcester boy?
Yeah. So I grew up just up the road in Fernhill Heath. My parents still live there. Came here as a child and as a teenager. And I would have said I was a Christian as a teenager. And then when I was about 16, I just started to, just dabble with life a bit at 16. So I was still coming to church and kind of started living these 2 lives. And then ended up just walking away from church. I guess I would probably say I was old enough to start to make some of my own decisions, decide what I did on a Sunday and what I did on a Saturday night as well. So I got a girlfriend who wasn't interested at all in church, and so that started to pull me away from those friendship groups, and then just started partying and drinking with friends. And it just, it was kind of gradual over maybe over 6 months to a year. But
So what you've just described, really, I guess, is being pulled away from a Christian lifestyle.
yeah.
Was there more going on than that in your kind of head and your heart? Were you know, what did you think of the Christian message, for example? What did you think of Jesus? What did you think of what was said on a Sunday in church? Was that...
I think I just got so used to it because I grew up in it.
Yeah.
And then when I started to be able to make decisions for myself, it felt like it was restricting my freedom. So I wanted to do all these things, these new things that look so great and so much fun. And it felt like the Christian message was kind of holding me back from all that.
Was it fun? That period?
Yeah, it was great. Yeah. So from 16 onwards, I went to university just down the road in Gloucester, and was just a typical student, really. Typical student guy. Lots of girlfriends, lots of drinking, lots of basketball. So I played basketball at university. I was never very good. I'm a bit too short to be any good at basketball. But I was the social sex, so I organised all the drinking. So I organised our tours and then our Wednesday nights out and our drinking circles and all that kind of stuff. So I was at the centre of that, the social at university, and just everything that comes along with that. I mean, you can fill in the gaps. I don't need to do that for you. But yeah, it was great fun. Like I didn't want anything else. I didn't feel like I needed to come back to anything. I was having a great time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what changed? What made you start thinking about God then? You're having a great time. You're doing whatever you want to do. Where does God come into that for you?
Yeah, good question. So I finished university. I stayed on and did an extra course at university, and then came straight out of university and got my ideal job in water sports. I was a development officer for water sports around the West Midlands. And so at that point, I got a house with my best mate in Bromsgrove, and that kind of became a bit of a party house. Had a job, had a car that I could fit my surfboard in the back of, so that was a dream. A girlfriend who was great, and just lots of partying still. And I remember really vividly one morning waking up in a strange bed in Cheltenham. I'll let you fill in the blanks there as well. But I remember looking up, and I remember the pattern on the ceiling, the pattern of the paint on the ceiling of this room.
You can still remember that?
I can still remember that. It's totally irrelevant to the story, but I remember the pattern of the paint on the ceiling. It's kind of how vivid that moment was. And I remember thinking at that point, it was this odd combination of kind of guilt and emptiness. And like at that moment, I had everything that I was about 22, I think. Everything that a 22-year-old guy should want. And it just felt rubbish. It just felt really empty. And that was the first moment, I think, that I felt like it wasn't enough. And so I remember at that point, because I knew the stories from before, because I'd been in church before, I remember saying in my head, God, if you're there, we need to do something about this. Got up, found my car, went to McDonald's, sat over at McDonald's breakfast and prayed. I can't remember exactly what I prayed, but I just remember that being the moment that I kind of thought, I've got to do something about this. And I think God might be the place I've got to go for that.
Right. Had you prayed before then? You know, I mean, how long had it been?
Would have been 10 years since, no, not 10 years, because that would maybe 12 when that wouldn't work, would it, maybe?
And a lot of people will say, well,
you know,
they think of prayer as this very kind of formal thing that people in kind of official religious kind of garb would do. And what was that kind of prayer for you?
It definitely wasn't formal. I was sat in McDonald's with a hangover and a greasy McDonald's breakfast and a coffee in front of me. There was nothing formal about it. And it was me just pouring myself out to God, who I don't think I knew very well at that point, saying there's got to be more to this than everything I've got. It's just not doing it. So I need you, I think, is basically all I was saying at that point.
What happened after that?
There was no dramatic, quick, overnight flash. There was nothing like that. From then, it was just a slow process, I think, of coming back to church, just physically being here on a Sunday, which was hard for me because it'd been so long of either living a double life or just being away from it totally. So just being here on a Sunday was hard work. But having to do that and getting more and more comfortable with that, meeting Christians and seeing actually they seemed to have that thing that I didn't have. And it took me a while to work out what that was as well. And then slowly there was just a change in, like, my behaviours changed, and I felt less and less comfortable in a nightclub, less and less comfortable getting drunk. I split up with my girlfriend, which she wasn't very happy about. And it but they all happened really slowly and gradually. It was kind of a slow transformation.
So you said that you saw something in Christians that you noticed. What was it? Because what you've just described is becoming religious. You know, you went from a position of, you know, just doing what you wanted, and then you came back to church.
Yeah.
Was it more than just a kind of a lifestyle change?
Yeah. And what I saw in the Christians, and actually my wife was one of them, the group of friends that I became part of at that point, was that sense of fulfillment that I didn't have.
Right.
I mean, they didn't have the great job that I had. They couldn't fit their surfboard in the car and all that kind of stuff. But they were happy where they were. They were comfortable. They were fulfilled. But they were just normal people doing that. And so I think I wanted that because, I didn't have that.
And where did that come from?
Well, I found out it came from Jesus, and that was the answer. And that's what transformed me over time. I realised that actually that was the difference between what I had and what they had. They were trusting Jesus, and their whole lives had that foundation, and very normal-looking lives were lived with fulfillment and with a peace, I think.
So let me push back a bit on this. You know, some people may be sitting here and thinking, why would a 22-year-old guy who got everything commit his life to a Middle Eastern guy who lived 2,000 years ago? Yeah. Why couldn't you just grown up a bit? Yeah. You know, what is Jesus got that's so special? Yeah,
it's a good question. And I was thinking about this week, and I don't know if you saw in the news, the Foo Fighters drummer died recently. I don't know how familiar everybody is with the Foo Fighters, but I've had their songs on repeat this week, and there's one song called "All My Life." I'm going to try not to sing it to you, but I'll tell you the first few lines. It says, "All my life I've been searching for something. Something never comes, never leads to nothing. Nothing satisfies, but I'm getting closer to the prize at the end of the road." And the whole point behind those lines is that, for me, I was searching for something, but it never came. So even just living the religious life, just changing how I behaved, that wouldn't do it. That wouldn't fill any of the hole I had. And so I had to look at who Jesus was. And so I think that part of my transformation was looking at the person of Jesus. Looking at the Bible makes massive claims about who Jesus is. Jesus makes massive claims about who he is. He says he's the creator of the universe, who became a human, who died for us and then rose again. And for me, it was that rising again that was the important thing. Because if that happened, then that changes everything. If it didn't, then all this is a load of rubbish. And you can enjoy your curry and go home. But if Jesus really rose again, that changed everything for me.
Right.
And so, as part of investigating Christianity again for myself, it was looking at the evidence for that, evidence in the Bible, outside of the Bible, and I'm convinced that there was a man called Jesus who rose again, and so that's what's transformed me really, and that's what the people had that I saw that I wanted. It's that Jesus.
I guess last question. What would you say to someone who said to you, "I'm glad you're able to turn your life around and get fulfillment, but I'm older, it's too late for me, I'm not 22, great for you, but not for me"?
Yeah. Well, I'm not 22 either anymore. It's never too late, I don't think. My granddad was in his late 70s when he'd pushed back against my grandma for his whole life. And then everything changed for him. And he's with Jesus now, which is amazing. And actually, it's not about me. If it's about Jesus, and if Jesus is who he says he is, then it doesn't matter how old you are. It matters whether you've investigated who he is and made a decision about that. And you might decide that you might come to a different conclusion to me, and that's fine. But I think I'd say if there's anybody who's thinking that, have you looked into who he is for yourself? Because the thief that died next to Jesus on the cross, at that moment, just before he died, he said to Jesus, he basically said, I trust you and I see who you are. And Jesus said, today you'll be with me in paradise. Moments before his death, he trusted in Jesus. So it's never too late. And it's all about who Jesus is. And that if that's true, it's true for everybody, not just me.